Welcome to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. I have Hayley Caronia with me today. She is the host of the Nightly Scroll on weeknights at 6 p.m. with Silverlock. And I am so excited to talk about all things. There's so much going on today in the world. We've now just recently found out that KJP is an independent. Elon's throwing arrows or darts at the White House. There's just a lot happening. So, Hayley, thank you for joining me.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So we just recently found out, and it's just such a joke. Karine Jean-Pierre has now come out as an independent. She's come out before. This is the second coming out for her. She's now an independent. So what do we think about this independence that she's declaring after she was literally the voice of the dead for 4 years?
Yeah, she is not an independent. This is very convenient for her and other Democrats who worked in the Biden administration, and now their guy lost. So now they're out of a job. Now they are desperate to get into the good graces of the American people again. So maybe they can work in this town again. But they were tied to the Biden administration. Karine Jean-Pierre was
tied. She was literally tied to him. She was his mouth.
Yes. So if you're the mouthpiece of the Biden administration, it's very hard to walk that back and then say, yeah, this party is just total BS and I don't stand for anything. And we should be free thinkers and think outside of these boxes. I mean, it's very convenient now that she was the mouthpiece for President Biden. And she was peddling all of these lies about President Biden for the last 4 years. Now she gets to pretend to be on the right side of history. I'm not buying it.
I heard people talking about it and they're like, some of the things that she said were just not true. And then one of the other people was like, no, we call that a lie. That's legitimately a lie. She genuinely lied. And you can see how people are still somewhat carefully walking conversations like this, where they're like, are we allowed to say that she fully lied? Yes. Yep. Yes. We're allowed to say everybody in that administration lied. All of these Democrats who stood up for President Biden saying he should run again all knew they were lying. The Schumers of the world, the Pelosi's of the world, everyone knew they were lying, but she's the worst. And this to me is so funny because it's happening across the country. People are like, oh, turns out I'm an independent. Like that's a whole nother party. They're trying to create another party that I don't even know what it represents, because same thing happened here in Michigan where the mayor of Detroit came out as an independent and right. He's running for governor now, and he's running against a hardcore Democrat. And she's mad because she's like, what are you talking about? A few months ago, man, you were on the stage with Kamala Harris just screaming her praises. And now you're an independent. These people are so full of crap.
Yeah, Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, is also running as an independent. He's the incumbent. Now, all of a sudden, he's not a Democrat anymore. Now he's an independent. I don't understand that. But I just think they're all trying to distance themselves from the Democrat Party in general. Karine Jean-Pierre, I think she's trying to distance herself from the Biden administration because that was chaos and it was a debacle. And I wouldn't want to be associated with it either. But I think Democrats in general have a real issue because they are failing and they don't have any leaders right now. They have no one to turn to. They're floundering. So even the Democrats don't want to be Democrats anymore.
But the one thing that's the point. That's the part I love about Karine Jean-Pierre coming out with this book and the bizarrety of it being called The Independent. I mean, how hilarious is this? But the fact that she's doing it, you have the president's press secretary coming out now and saying, I've left the party that I stood up for years in front of a podium looking like a moron and defending this. And now I'm stepping away. To me, the story here, I don't give a crap about her. She is a lost piece. Well, she says she's a walking piece of history. Wait, let's play this clip of her and then we'll chat about how irrelevant she is.
Many things that made me incredibly proud to be at that podium during this historic moment. Again, this is a historic administration. I'm a historic figure and I certainly walk in history every day, but this is also a historic making administration because of this president.
They love to say the same word over and over again. That was a Kamala thing too. Historic. She is history now. But she's trying to stay relevant. I think the story here is that there she was out there defending this administration, and now she is doing everything she can to escape. what is the future of the party if people are running so hard that they're putting out books saying, I hate this administration, I hate this party, I'm not a part of it.
Yeah, it's interesting that she called herself a historical figure. That's really patting yourself on the back there, which I don't think is necessary. She was the first Black press secretary. She was the first openly gay press secretary. I love how they have to say that because they don't know if past secretaries were actually gay. She might not be the first. She's just the first open one about it. And that's really telling because it doesn't matter who you sleep with behind closed doors. It doesn't matter so long as they are consenting adults. I don't care who you sleep with. That shouldn't be an identifier or a qualifier that follows your title. You're the White House press secretary. That's an honor. Maybe not if you're peddling lies to the Biden administration or for the Biden administration, but certainly this obsession with the word historic, like you said, Kamala Harris, first, whatever she is, Black, Indian, I don't know. The first openly trans human health and human services secretary, or she was deputy or something, or he was deputy, right? I get all confused, right?
Well, of course. How can you keep up because of all of this?
It's lunacy. And all the progress that Democrats can deliver on is these firsts. They can't deliver on progress that actually means something for the American people. So they use these buzzwords that gets people, liberals, excited about Democrats in general. That's really the only thing they can deliver on.
But buzzwords have not delivered. That's the problem. And they're like, why didn't the buzzwords work? And this is honestly a conversation with them right now. It's like, we tried all these buzzwords. They didn't, food security, all these things that you have to, it's so bizarre because you have to kind of like pull yourself out of this weird liberal box to stitch the words together the right way to go, okay, that's what they meant, hungry people. Like this is insane that we have to try to wrap ourselves in a pretzel to figure out what the words mean in the Democrat Party. And that never struck them as a problem. Like, we're going to create new words that mean things that we already have words for. And why aren't people following this? Because people genuinely do care about the fact that there's a hunger issue in the United States, but they have no idea what the Democrats are talking about. And they have shamed men so hard, especially white men, but I think men in general. Like, I feel like they started shaming white men, but then they completely skipped over giving Black men any type of role in the Democrat Party because they were like, you know what, we've got to go on to trans and to women. And so all men got screwed in the Democrat Party. And they're like, why aren't men with us? You hate men. You have treated men like crap. They cannot figure out how that happened. And now they're trying to appeal to men with women that are not going to appeal to men.
Right. You can't be white in the Democrat Party. You can't be a white man. Certainly that's even worse. The only way that you can be a white man in the Democrat Party is if you sleep with other men. That's the only way that you can redeem yourself on this woke totem pole, because women are at the bottom, because trans people have completely erased them. It's insane.
Turns out men are so much better at being women in the Democrat Party.
They are the best women. Yes. They are the best women.
I mean, you can't make it up. And then, so you go through all of this, and I mean, just the chaos. I think that people have started to really step back, and men especially, because regardless of how much they want to deny biology and they want to deny what the traditional roles are of men, and I don't mean traditional in the sense that this is what society believes. This is what is innate. This is what our bodies are just desired to do, is to protect women. And you've created a society where everything is unsafe. You go into these big cities and people are getting robbed. People are walking into stores and having people shoplift next to them. You've had riots. You have this massive influx of illegal aliens, and you've got crime going on. And the problem that the Democrats have is that you can't deny it. We've had young women die. You have Rachel Morin who died. You had, all these other, you've got Ruby Garcia in Michigan who was killed. You got Laken Riley who was killed. You've got this man this terror attack that we just saw in Colorado. And this is another guy who came in under the Biden administration, and then he launched this horrific attack against Jewish people. You have that beautiful young couple in Washington, D.C., who's murdered on the streets. And to me, this is the bizarre part about it. We are not totally outraged right now about those two things. The attack in Colorado and and Josh Shapiro's house, the governor's mansion being burned. And they tried to burn it to the ground in Pennsylvania. They killed this beautiful young couple in Washington, D.C., set these people on fire in Colorado. And the Democrats have not come out and said, man, we really screwed this up.
No, of course, because then they would have to hold themselves accountable, which they're incapable of doing. Chris Cuomo, who used to be on CNN, now I guess he has his own podcast. Earlier this week, he said this whole Laken Riley and illegal immigration leading to crime thing is a manufactured crisis. He literally said that conservatives were making this up. The left loves to do this. They say that we are just running with wild right-wing conspiracy theories, and that's really just the truth that they don't want to admit. So Chris Cuomo legitimately said on his show, stories like Laken Riley, I mean, this is a one-off, but there's other crime that we should be talking about and prioritizing. Could you
tell Jasmine Nungare's mother that? I mean, give me a break. This is just absolutely outrageous that they are saying this kind of stuff. But honestly, that is why they're losing. That's why they're losing, because they come out and they say, and that's why men, when they say they're trying to recruit more men, that's why men have gone to the Republican Party every time. And in the last election cycle, they've been coming over. The young men have been coming over. I mean, my daughter said when she left high school on election day, the guys were chanting Trump, Trump, Trump as they walked out the door. Young men are sick and tired of feeling like they live in a country where they are demonized and they can't protect the people they love.
Well, the Democrats are really putting up these younger voices in the Democrat Party, Harry Sisson and David Hogg. And I think a lot of white liberal women with guilt like their content. Other liberals like their content. I don't think that Harry Sisson and David Hogg are speaking for the majority of men, because the Democrat Party has pushed men out for years, decades. They've been telling them that they're toxic, that their masculinity is wrong. They shouldn't lean into it. The only men that they lift up in the Democrat Party are ones that are too old to be running and shouldn't be there, Biden. And they lift up women pretending to be men or men pretending to be women. But it's not just men. If you are a normal man and you look at the Democrat Party of today, you're thinking, I don't have a place here. Because they've told you for years that you're toxic, you're bad, women don't need you, you're useless in society. So why would Democrats ever feel at home in the Democrat Party? And Harry Sisson and David Hogg, they're not doing it.
No, they are not going to appeal to men whatsoever. And I think they're still lost. I think they get it together by 2028, though. And that's what I want to caution Republicans against thinking, oh, the Democrat Party is just lost. And potentially it will. I mean, there's two schools of thought. The Democrat Party is dying off, but then, there's people who think Jasmine Crockett is the next second coming of the Democrat Party, that she's the future. And I would welcome that. If Jasmine Crockett is the image of what a Democrat is today, then I think that the Democrat Party becomes this radical leftist party. But what happens to these people who have now decided to declare their independence from the Democrat Party? Are they going to form a new party? What happens to them? Because you do have the Mike Duggans and the Eric Adams and the apparently KJPs of the world who are now independents. What happens to the Democrats?
I think those Democrats who have they're more centrist Democrats. I think they are going to become disaffected with the Democrat Party because the Democrats keep leaning in to these extremely progressive factions of the party, the AOCs of the world, the Squad. They take marching orders from the blue hair, septum piercing wearing people who are marching around for whatever cause, insert cause here. They'll just fight for anything because they stand for nothing. But that's really what the Democrats are focused on, which is kind of just noise. And the majority of people who go to the polls looking for policy and change that's actually going to affect their life, they're not going to identify with the Democrat Party anymore. I think some of them are probably still anti-Trump. And the good thing about 2028 is that Trump's not going to be on the ballot. Maybe his vice president will be, but depending on it's just a hypothetical. If Vice President J.D. Vance is the candidate, the Republican candidate in 2028. It would depend on who his vice president is. I wonder if he does pick someone like a Tulsi Gabbard, would she pick up those Democrats that are totally lost?
Interesting. Stay tuned for more, but first I want to take a moment for a message from my partners at IFCJ. Folks, we are seeing some truly disturbing anti-Semitism on the rise. We've seen things in the United States we've never seen before. We've seen things around the world. Jewish schools are being targeted. Synagogues are being threatened. Families are living in fear. They're living in fear right here, but they're living in fear in Israel. And it's something we hoped we'd never see again in our lifetime. And let me tell you this, silence is not an option. This is the time for us to take a stand. And that's why I want to tell you about the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, also known as IFCJ. They are on the front lines providing real help where it's needed most. They're giving food and shelter to Jewish families under threat. They're building bomb shelters for children. They're helping survivors of hate rebuild their lives. And they don't just respond to crisis. They work every single day to prevent it. Your gift of only $45 will help support their life-saving work. They'll help provide food, shelter, and so much more. The Bible says, I will bless those who bless you. Supporting IFCJ is a spiritual stand. It's showing up for God's people when it counts. So please today call 888-488-IFCJ. That's 888-488-4325, or you can go directly to the website. It's ifcj.org. Every dollar helps. Don't wait. Be the difference today. Visit ifcj.org or call 888-488-IFCJ. We've got more coming up after this, so stay tuned. I think people are watching this administration very carefully because there have been a lot of promises from RFK and there's a lot of controversy over what he's doing, but there hasn't been a massive amount of change because we're in the first few months still of this administration. So over the next 4 years, everybody will be watching every move very carefully and analyzing. I mean, every time the jobs report comes out, you've got Elon Musk leaving. There's all kinds of discussion over exactly what that is. And he's been putting some things out that are, I would say, somewhat negative about the administration. Well, specifically about the big, beautiful bill.
Right.
I wouldn't say that he has directly attacked the administration at this point, but he has said he is unhappy with the big, beautiful bill. I think that what has happened is that he's gotten in and seen that there is no easy way to just rip the government apart. And to probably a lot of Democrats' joy that he found out that you just can't do that. But, you know, it should be to the joy of the American people that it's not like you can just take apart what has been built. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't want to take a lot of it apart. I'm saying that the way the government is structured is it can't be destroyed overnight. And that should make people comfortable. But there are things that need to be cut. And it is hard to do because government doesn't move at the speed of anything else. Government moves very slow.
Right. I think that Elon Musk is probably very upset because he was hired in this contractor type position to be a special government employee. He was there for 130 some odd days to kind of go in there, root out this corruption, find where we're sending money to astronomical amounts of money to insane places like paying for circumcisions in Africa and transgender surgeries on mice and what have you. And I think he feels like, I just found all of this corruption. I saved America all of this money, and now we're going to raise the debt ceiling in this bill. And he feels like probably a personal attack. I just did all this work, and now we're seeing one step forward, two steps back. But you know, Elon Musk now launching this attack just hours ago on President Trump saying, I don't think that President Trump would have won without me. I think that Elon Musk was an integral part of the election process, but I don't think that people liked Elon Musk. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I think conservatives liked Elon Musk because of what he did with Twitter. And he completely rooted out corruption in Twitter and basically doged Twitter. And we have X, Twitter 2.0, and things are a lot better. And free speech was upheld in ways that we were not seeing under Twitter 1.0. But I think that the support for President Trump was genuine without Elon Musk. I think people liked that Elon Musk was attached to Trump, but I don't think that Trump wouldn't have won without him.
But I think Trump would be the first person to come out. The president is very much team oriented. He understands that you have to have the right people around you, and that's why I find that attack from Elon Musk interesting, because I think Donald Trump is the kind of guy who says, I needed all these factors to make sure we could get everything out to everybody, and that was critical. What Elon Musk did with the X files that came out, the files that came out from Matt Taibbi and the other journalists who went through and exposed what was going on behind the scenes. That was so critical. And I think he's right in the sense that that was critical. And I think President Trump would be the first person to say there had to be someone who was willing to go out and expose, look, the administration was working with these guys behind the scenes to brainwash you. And that had to happen to make sure that people realized propaganda is real. Government control is real. It has to be taken seriously. When Donald Trump came out and said, oh, they're banning me from saying this, but the supreme leader of Iran can come out and say whatever he wants. Right. And people were like, oh no, but you're dangerous. Well, then they get the files from behind the scenes, like, oh crap, he actually wasn't the person that they said he was. This was all manufactured, all manipulated. That was one factor that I think had to happen to get the country back on course. And I don't think Donald Trump would ever take that away from Elon to say, that wasn't critical. That was. So I guess it's a strange attack from Elon Musk to say, you wouldn't be here if it weren't for me. Well, we all play a part and nobody's taking that away from you. He got in and he realized that government is really hard to affect immediate change. Yeah. And I understand his pain on that. I get it.
Yeah. To your point about President Trump realizing the importance of having a great team around him, totally agree. I also think that President Trump doesn't like when people attack him. I think that he's a very loyal person and he respects when people are loyal back to him. And I think that this might be a rift in their professional relationship or in their friendship if they're friends. I don't know. But I think about the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. Elon Musk put a big push there. He was giving out big checks. I forget the amount of money now, but he was incentivizing voters to get out and vote in that race. And he didn't win that race. We didn't win that seat. And I think for Elon Musk to do that and then say this, that, Trump wouldn't have won without him, we'll see how their relationship goes, but I can see this being a little rocky.
So what do you think is the future in the administration? What goes on after in the next few years with RFK and you do have Tulsi Gabbard in there, and there is kind of this rallying around. Donald Trump still has his approval rating is rising. I mean, I expect that to kind of ebb and flow over the next 3.5 years because that's typically how it goes. But can he set up the midterms in a way that people say, yeah, I want to see Republicans still have this chance, because the Democrat Party is really still in total chaos?
Yeah, I think President Trump did a lot via executive order in the beginning. That was awesome. I think we need to see Republicans in Congress kind of codify President Trump's policies into law and really affect change that way on that side of government. And what do I want to see in the next 4 years? I think a lot of people voted with culture issues in mind. I think President Trump has done a good job on that, certainly protecting women in women's sports. And I think the Maha movement is next, because there were a lot of moms, crunchy granola moms, maybe liberal moms, and also conservative moms who were concerned about their children and what they're feeding them. I mean, I feel like the Maha movement is more bipartisan than we think. So I think if they solidify some good movement there in the Maha movement, I know they're banning very dangerous dyes and chemicals in foods. I think this is a win for everyone. I think these are things that most Americans can get behind, making sure that there aren't seed oils and other toxic sludge in baby formula. I think, again, this is another thing that I would be hard pressed to find a liberal that doesn't have TDS that wouldn't agree with that.
And that's the crazy thing. When you hear about what's in baby formula and you go, what? How do we not know this? But I will say a few years ago, I worked with a kid and I remember him saying, man, kids are so fat these days that he was like, if I see a kid that's overweight, I immediately think those parents are out of control. And he didn't have kids and he was young. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give you grace on that one because you haven't experienced parenting yet. But it was before we really realized, Americans are eating much differently than people in Europe. And I think at that time, I really felt like, oh my gosh, I kind of fell into the propaganda of Americans just always have big meals and we eat, everything is large and the big gulp and the slushies and the, restaurants, everything is just supersized, supersize me. It was like the American story was that we just ate too much. Right. And I think we got lulled into this, it's our individual faults that we struggle with our weight. And then I started to see years ago, I started to see like Vani Hari, who came out and was like, man, this stuff is messed up. The stuff we're eating is messed up. It's not, it's people in Europe, these chemicals and foods have been banned. These food dyes have been banned. And I was like, wait a minute, what if we really are? What if the FDA is not as the trusted source that we thought it was? And I'm not saying that we have to just throw out everything that we have in government, but why on earth is it that people in Europe are not eating the crap that we're eating? And when you look at pictures from Europe and you compare them to the United States, we are overweight, we are unhealthy. But what if it is not because of what we are eating? It's because of what's in what we're eating.
Yeah, I think in order to be healthy in America these days, you have to really make a concerted effort to be healthy. You can't just kind of be this lackadaisical, I have a good body. I don't have to really work at it. I eat semi-healthy. I mean, when you eat, even when you try to eat very healthy, you go to Whole Foods, maybe you're trying to find organic foods. You will look at the ingredient list and say, what is that? Even in organic food. I started on this journey maybe a few months ago, maybe a year ago, of looking at the nutrition facts, looking at the ingredients in everything I eat, everything I buy. It is very hard to not have chemicals in your body. Even if you are going to organic health food stores, it is very difficult to not find a salad dressing that doesn't have xanthan gum in it or some other emulsifier, some other chemical that makes it tasty or colorful or what have you. And I think the American food system has spent so much time with GMO and on all these things, making food look a certain way, making it look appetizing, genetically modifying tomatoes to make them bigger, to make them last longer in food stores. Everything is because they want to make money.
So, but that's where, food security, we talked about that word earlier, but that's where they're like, oh, if we don't, everybody's going to be hungry if we don't have GMOs. And I'm not saying that I'm an expert on this, but this is the first time we have seen somebody go into the administration that is actually talking about this in a different way, because everybody else has been owned by big food. And there are governors out there and there are congressmen and women out there who are owned by big sugar and big pharma and all these different organizations that have lobbyists that go in and say, we'll pay to get you elected. And there's a massive amount of money in politics. And that's the scary part. When I look at other countries, why are they not dealing with this? Do they not allow this? Do they not have pharmaceutical lobbies that go in and manipulate their elected officials? Maybe not, but something's got to give, because America is unhealthy and we are one of the most unhealthy Western nations. And it is not because we are purposely doing this. And you brought up going someplace where you go shop all organic. Well, I mean, who can afford that? Honestly.
No, barely. I mean, it's I think to your point earlier, when you were talking about what do I want to see in the next 4 years, I know that we're happy with the way that things are going. Gas prices are dropping a little bit. Grocery prices dropping a little bit. I think the American people need to see more ahead of the midterms in order to really get that feeling like, yeah, my vote was worth it. My vote for Trump was worth it. I want to see this continue. So that's another thing too. The Maha movement, but also prices got to keep coming down. And
Yeah.
to your point about politicians getting corrupted by lobbyists, I mean, it's really any cause that politicians talk about, it makes me think they're corrupted. They become so easily corrupted. I hate the government. I hate the government. I don't really care what side of the government you are on, what side of the aisle you are on. I think that a lot of people are well-meaning. They go into government because they want to help. They want to be a public servant. And then when you see what happens, I feel like even the people who have good intentions hit this wall where they want to make progress and they can't for some reason. And maybe it is this maybe it's lobbyists, maybe it's something else. I don't know what it is, but that's very disheartening for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think that government should completely be exposed. So I'm anxious to see where this goes. I'm anxious to see what happens over the next 4 years. What I've been told is exactly what you just said. People want to see money back in their pockets. Everything has gotten too expensive, and it is outrageous. I mean, everything and the taxes in many of these states are so high that we're looking for relief from the federal government. And that's what we'll see, hopefully, in this big, beautiful bill. Hopefully, we'll see some tax relief. We'll see some gas prices go down. And ultimately, I think that to have both women and men come together to vote in 2028 or even in 2026 for the midterms, there is going to have to be a discussion about how we can trust the food that we're eating, because I think that's what it comes down to, is that you can't trust what you go buy at the grocery store anymore. And I'm not saying, I'm not even talking about the processed food. I'm talking about you can't even trust the food that you're buying in the produce department. It's like, buy organic. And then you've got the next person saying, well, you can't buy organic because you'll have this problem. Right. And I think we just feel like there's an overload. Someone needs to come in and say, we're trying to solve chronic disease with what goes into your mouth and what you put into your stomach. And we're going to make sure that's healthy. And I think that is the future. And I appreciate you coming on to speak to us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell people where because you have a new show, but
Yes.
you're out there in the X world and social media. So tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can follow me at Hayley Caronia on X, on Truth Social, on TikTok, on Instagram, and my show is Nightly Scroll. It's on Rumble live Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time.
Awesome. We will definitely tune in. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. For this episode and others, go to iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can watch the video on Rumble too at Tudor Dixon. Join us next time on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. Have a blessed day.